Hi, on this slide today we're going to be talking about the thoracic erectors. So let's go ahead and open up our 3D app. Alright, so our erectors, those are going to be the muscles that are going to run parallel to the spine, basically running from the SI joint or the sacrum area all the way up to the occipital region or the base of the skull. We're going to go back over a lot of this information in these slides just so we can kind of refresh the information that maybe we haven't talked about in a while or since massage school possibly, and make it just more effective when we look at this rotation of the pelvic for lower back issues. All right. One of the great techniques that we like to employ within our teaching methodologies is using mnemonics. Mnemonics is a great way to remember vast amounts of data in a streamlined manner, using numbers, letters, organization, something such as that. So with our erectors, we can think about the erectors, the mnemonic being ILS, or I love standing. All right, so if we look at our illustration here, we have I, L, S. I love standing, or our anatomy terms that we would use for this musculature would be the iliocostalis, the longissimus, and the spinalis, which also applies mirrored on the opposing side, so it would be S, L, I. But if we look at it from the left-hand side, I love standing. So when we stand, our torso is what? It's erect. So it's a great mnemonic that goes into play with this information. Within the medical community, they use I love sex. We chose not to use that mnemonic just for the fact that we didn't want that connotation going with massage and for our career. So I love standing is how we're going to address our mnemonic for the erectors in the thoracic region. All right. So what we want to really understand is with these erectors, they're all going to come down and attach in the thoracolumbar aponeurosis area onto the sacrum and onto the posterior side of the pelvis region. The SI joint, or the sacroiliac joint, has traditionally about 1 to 3 degrees range of motion. If that range of motion has dissipated, or if it's no longer available for a client or someone working with range of motion, it can be debilitating into lower back pain. So remember, 1 to 3 traditionally degrees range of motion in the SI joint, or you can also think about how the pelvis can rotate forward, anteriorly, or posteriorly. It might be called nutation or counter nutation if you're looking at it from a kinesiology standpoint. Nonetheless, those musculature regions are going to come up the thoracic region. The iliocostalis is going to go underneath the scapula. The longissimus is going to kind of come up in between the spinalis and the longissimus, and the other is going to, the spinalis is going to come up to the base of the skull, or the occipital region. With this musculature, we also have to understand that anytime that there's muscles on either side of the body in the thoracic region, we use terms called uni engagement or unilateral or bilateral, meaning one side's engaging or both sides are engaging at the same time. They're vastly different if one side does and the other side doesn't. Meaning, if we look on our screen here, the iliocostalis on the left-hand side, if it were to unilaterally engage by itself, it's going to do lateral flexion to the same side, or lateral flexion to the left. If we were looking at the longissimus on the right-hand side, as a uni engagement, it's also going to do lateral flexion to the same side. In this scenario, it would be just to the right side. However, if both of those musculatures were to bilaterally engage, which means they would engage at the same time, they're going to pull the torso into extension, which is where the term extensors come from. Right? So it's going to extend the thoracic region. So that's very important, very, very quick information for us to be able to look at for the musculature in the back that runs parallel to the spine. And there's kind of an illustration. If you have had a hard time learning the anatomy, I suggest getting a 3D app such as this. It makes the learning so much more valuable and so much more easy to see with the technology that we have in our world today, versus the traditional books that we might flip through to try to learn the anatomy, which can be very confusing. These apps can really give you a great understanding of the anatomy. Of course, it's still an artistic rendering of it, but it can be very, very, very good and very beneficial. We encourage it with our students at Texas Massage Academy. There's the longissimus. If we illustrated it or isolated it by itself, you can see it kind of like a popliteal tree, which is another term that they will use for the erectors. But it's really great. You can see how that specifically right there, how that attaches on that posterior aspect of that sacrum. If that musculature was tight, you could see how it would pull that sacrum into an anterior tip pelvic, which would also do that with the whole pelvis region as well, and it would pull, could possibly even elevate to one side or another a little bit. So that kind of takes care of our erectors today from an anatomy standpoint. We're not going to go through all of the hardcore part of the anatomy because we have a lot of muscles to go through. But for our slide today, that takes care of the erectors of the spine.